All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, John, Iadarola with you guys. We've got 1,000 things to do today, but I'm going to do a correction first, and then we got white nationalists. We got Donald Trump making an ass out of himself as usual. We got a lot of papers. We got good news. We got everything, okay? Whoa, that's fun. I didn't even see this until just now. Okay. And wait till you get a load of the network after this show ends. Okay, what do I mean by that? On Rebel headquarters tonight, two fun sets of guests. The first guest is going to try to convince me to become vegan. That'll be fun, okay?
Who's the guest?
An animal rights activist and author. Okay, but the second set of guests are the leaders of the Justice Democrats. So they will unveil some of their new plans for the next 2 years on Rebel headquarters right here on tyt.com/live, okay? And then for our members, they will then stick around for the post game and tell us how they found Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the first place.
Damn.
That's a super interesting story. Some of you might have read it in one publication, but I think most of the folks don't know that story. And it's a really, really interesting one. So that's for our members, tyt.com/join to become a member, or while Anna's out, there's a good opportunity for me to catch up. tyt.com/Cenk is a great way to sign up and become a member. By the way, we are also doing free trials this week. So probably the easiest way. Let's keep it real. You're going to get a week free to try it out if you go to tyt.com/holiday, okay? So week free trials, tyt.com/holiday to make that happen. I don't know how long that's going to last, presumably through the holidays, but I don't know. Okay, you never know.
2 years, actually.
Yeah, you never know. Okay, so check that out. It's a good opportunity to do that. Okay, so here's exciting news. I just realized Meet the Press has been sold.
What?
Is this going on? Oh, there we go.
Whisper of a firework.
Okay, tyt.com/amplify. We're getting it to John Iadarola lookalikes all over the media.
I knew you were going to say that. JR is a horrid man.
Yeah, I don't even believe it. I don't even think it's true at all.
So either.
But I know that it bothers you, so I enjoy that part.
That much is clear.
Meet the Press now getting TYT membership, not just Chuck Todd, but the staff as well through tyt.com/amplify. The Intercept also getting TYT membership. And so, look, we try super hard to get it to these folks after you guys buy it for them. So, but with the Intercept, we will have great luck.
Yeah, I know a few people who are might be members already, actually.
Yeah, and so we will definitely get it to them. So Glenn Greenwald, Jeremy Scahill, Ryan Grimm, et cetera, Lee Fong, Zed Jelani, some of the, I would argue, I just named 5 out of the top 10 or 20 writers in the country. They're all at the Intercept. And so tyt.com/amplify. Thank you for making that happen. Oh, let me give credit to the folks who did it. Meg Hopley is the one who bought the Meet the Press package. So Meg, you're the best of the best. Really appreciate it.
You can use it.
Yes.
Thank you, Meg.
And I will find out who bought the Intercept and share that with you in the next break. Okay. A couple of a correction and then a fun story. I have a quick correction for you guys. Yesterday, when we're covering the Neil deGrasse Tyson story, yeah, I was a bit moved by that story. and it was the last story that we did on the show, so John did not get a chance to correct me as we ran out of time. So I mentioned Patheos being a faith and spirituality blog and assumed that they might not agree with Neil deGrasse Tyson in the story that they covered about the 3 women who have made accusations against him. That was an incorrect assumption on my part. First of all, Patheos covers a variety of different beliefs, including no belief, and atheists, et cetera. And in fact, the writer of that piece, David G. McAfee, is a journalist and author of No Sacred Cows, investigating myths, cults, and the supernatural. He is, to the best of my understanding, not a religious person. He writes about science, skepticism, and faith. And his blog is No Sacred Cows. That's also on the Patheos Network. Now the comments on the actual story, both the women's allegations and Neil deGrasse Tyson stand, there are no factual errors there, and we did report what David McAfee wrote. It was when we moved on to the part about analysis, such as it was in that particular case, where I made the mistaken assumption about Pathos and the writer, which I clearly should not have done. So my apologies on that, and I wanted to make sure that we corrected it at the top of the show today, okay? And I'll let him know on Twitter that we corrected it because I forgot to let him know. Okay, so now let's go to a quick fun story. So guys at Wolf-PAC sent me a picture from about a year ago from West Virginia. Richard Saffel's our leader there. He's literally known as Wolf-PAC Saffel. So that's how often he goes to the state legislature, and he's awesome. So he took this picture of a solid get-together that they had in West Virginia. Let's take a look at it right here. And that's his big face right in the front there.
I recognize someone.
Wait a minute, there appears to be someone in that picture that you might recognize. Sure, Saffel's also famous, but the guy on the right-hand side is one Senator Richard Ojeda. Remember, he's a state senator in West Virginia. Now, he was, had come to the meeting. This is when he was running for Congress, but a state senator. Wolf-PAC's having a meeting, and here come Ojeda. Now, I talked to Richard Ojeda about a year after that picture, and I said, this was off the air, and I said, tell me about the different things that you want to do about money in politics. On the air, he told me he wants to put body cams on lobbyists, which is super fun. Then he announced for president after his race for Congress and said that he would cap all income for people who work in Congress at $250,000 after they retire, and they'd have to give up everything but $1 million. Heads exploded. Now, the thing is, they think he's not going to win, so they're not making a big deal out of it. But if he does win, he'd be the most dangerous man in Washington. They'd be like, no, how could we only make $250,000? But when I talked to him off air, he said, well, look, I supported this group called Wolf-PAC. I was like, Richard, do you know who started Wolf-PAC? And he's like, no. I'm like, I started Wolf-PAC. He's like, well, I don't think I can say it on there. He's like, really?
He held you up against the wall and said, you lying to me?
Because I'll knuckle up. So
that's funny.
No, but what I love about that story is that he didn't have to go to a Wolf-PAC gathering of activists to get money out of politics in the middle of West Virginia. And sometimes state legislators do. We had a state legislator from New Hampshire join our volunteer call the other day, just randomly, like, hey, who are you? Oh, I'm a state representative. Oh, cool. Okay. So, but it doesn't happen that often. And Ojeda at the time doesn't know he's going to run for president, doesn't know, he's not doing it for politics. He showed up because he wanted to get money out of politics.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you guys are trying to get money out of politics, deal me in, right? So great credit to Ojeda on that one. And if you want to do like Ojeda and join Wolf-PAC, wolf-pac.com/join. Make that happen. You might run into Ojeda one day, or he might run into you.
Damn.
When I asked him about money in politics, you know what he said? I can't accept that. I almost had the soundboard ready, but I didn't.
I can't accept that.
From the ad, yeah.
And when I asked, how do you feel about people taking money like Kara Miller?
How dare she?
By the way, if we combine two of the things you talked about, so you're going to have the heads of the Justice Democrats here, and you're talking about meeting up with Richard Ojeda at one of those meetings. You go to one of those meetings in your own area, you might not meet Richard Ojeda, but you might meet one of the people that's going to be running as a Justice Democrat and become a congressman next time around. Wow. Those are exactly the sorts of people that will be running again.
That's right. That's right. Wait till you get a load of our plans for the next year. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. One last one. Hey, Senator Ojeda, should lobbyists come by your doorstep?
They need not darken my doorstep.
Stick around with the Young Turks and Wolf-PAC and Just Democrats. You never know who you run into. Hey, John's absolutely right. If you'd come to a Just Democrat get-together in New York, you might run into a one Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez before her election. And so
Yeah,
come along, come along. We're gonna go fix the country. So join up for a little bit of change, or maybe just a lot of change. Okay.
TikTok.
That's right.
Not really, mixing up things.
Okay,
why don't we talk about some news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yesterday, the true political leaders in this country, Bernie Sanders and others, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, had a climate change town hall in DC and talked about the severity of the threat that we're facing and what we need to do to meet it. And that same night, Donald Trump and his administration decided to move in exactly the opposite direction. This is economic advisor Larry Kudlow announcing that they would be cutting, they plan to, all subsidies for electric vehicles and renewable sources of energy. That same night that there's this enthusiastic coming together of climate activists and all that, they're looking to cut those subsidies. Larry Kudlow specifically said, as a matter of our policy, we want to end all of those subsidies. And by the way, other subsidies that were imposed during the Obama administration, we are ending, whether it's for renewables and so forth. As a matter of our policy, we want to, that's a duplicate there. Now, bear in mind, we could have known that this was going to come since Donald Trump tweeted just a few days ago this, very disappointed with General Motors and their CEO, Mary Barra, for closing plants in Ohio, Michigan, and Maryland. Nothing being closed in Mexico and China. The US saved General Motors, and this is the thanks we get. We're now looking at cutting all GM subsidies, including for electric cars, and then he goes on. So once again, I know that we like to write off Donald Trump's Twitter, but sometimes he tweets something crazy and then that becomes the crazy official policy of our government. So I don't know if Larry Kudlow agrees with this policy for the same reason that Donald Trump does. I don't know if it's purely about they're mad at GM, so they decide that they're going to hurt American car manufacturers. But cutting those subsidies is significant. It means that fewer people will buy those cars. Those cars won't sell as well. Companies will invest less money in research and development to produce more efficient cars, building on the technology over time. And we will be less well prepared to deal with at least that component of the emissions that are contributing to climate change in this country. But very casual change for them.
Yeah. So a couple of things about this. Number one, interestingly enough, they have decided not to end the subsidies on oil or natural gas or coal. So the fossil fuel subsidies will continue. And there are literally so many fossil fuel subsidies that even experts have a hard time tracking all of them. And so the range of how much subsidies the fossil fuel companies get range from $4 billion a year to $24 billion a year. So the most reliable number, to the best of my knowledge, was $14 billion, but I'd take, all incoming facts on that issue. But it is an enormous amount of subsidies for an industry that does not need it at all. They've had subsidies for over 100 years. Subsidies are supposed to be for a young industry to make sure they can get up off their feet. Do we think oil's gotten up off its feet? Has it stabilized yet? And so, and of course, that's just corruption. They're the most profitable companies in the world. They're literally the companies that need subsidies the least on the entire planet, let alone the fact that they're destroying the planet. Even if they didn't have terrible consequences and harm that they were causing, they still wouldn't need the subsidies. It would still be a crime to take our money as taxpayers, to take money that you give in taxes and to give it to ExxonMobil. But they're not ending those. They're ending it for renewable energies that actually create jobs, save the planet, and actually those are companies that do need it because it is a nascent industry. And the subsidies that they gave earlier led to a lot of those companies stabilizing, getting their feet under them, and now competing with fossil fuel. Yeah. So fossil fuel sends in their lobbyists, using this GM thing probably as an excuse to go and destroy renewable energy. That is called crony capitalism. Yep. It is the definition of it. It is not the free market. And so understand what Donald Trump is doing. As usual, he's messing around with the free market. If he actually cared about it, and he wanted to be principled. I don't agree with ending the renewable energy subsidies. But at a bare minimum, you all have to agree, even if you're conservative, maybe particularly if you're conservative, that he should have ended all the subsidies, including for oil, gas, and coal, but he didn't.
Yeah. And look, this is, I guess, what is this, the 70th story like this that we've done in the past 2 years, where when you put climate deniers and people who despise the environment and love oil and coal, when you put them in office, this is what you get. And so every week or so, every 2 weeks at max, we have a story like this where we are screwed over when it comes to our environment and our climate, that we don't have time to be screwing around. We don't have a bunch of years that we can just afford for them to be driving us off a cliff as fast as they possibly can. But this is what we get. We get this, we get getting rid of Obama-era CAF standards, we get the destruction of the methane regulations, new oil drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, more oil drilling offshore. I mean, I could honestly go on for this entire hour, and we actually did a couple of videos where it was just a listing of the many regulation changes that benefit coal and oil and natural gas and fracking and harm our ability to deal with the threat of climate change. But this is what we get. And there are other proposals. I'm not gonna go through them. It's just, it's distressing to see in a 24-hour period, we have people who are serious, whether they're activists or politicians, and we saw both in DC at Bernie Sanders' climate meeting, who take this threat seriously, who wanna institute something like a Green New Deal, who wanna deal with climate change while generating millions of jobs and renewed economic activity and all of that. And then to know that best case scenario, we get to wait about 2 years, unless we are more successful than we could possibly imagine in convincing the Republicans to go over to our side, we still have to wait a couple of years because of this ridiculous, unnecessary, suicidal detour we've taken as a country.
All right, last couple of things. One, it might be a lot of huffing and puffing as usual with Donald Trump. He cannot by himself do this regulation according to experts. Now, how many times has he broken the law? So I don't know that he cares about that. But the Democrats are coming to the House and they will not allow this to go forward.
Because it's a component of the tax law, that is the idea.
That's right.
But we'll see.
By the way, we say the Democrats will not allow this, but they are Democrats.
Yeah, I find it to be unlikely. I find it more likely that he would just do an executive order and say, I don't care what you say, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, and I don't care what the law is, et cetera, and which he's done on many occasions. But now I'm gonna give him a tiny bit of ironic credit. The idea that corporations are people and patriotic and we should just beseech them is preposterous. I've said it thousands of times. So here, Trump is not beseeching them, he's trying to punish them. Now you can't punish one particular company. You can't single it out, and they realize that. And Larry Kudlow, his chief economic advisor, seems frustrated by that piece of law again. So you can't do that. But he is trying to put consequences on companies for cutting back on jobs and leaving the country. Okay, but just can you please do it in a smart way and a non-corrupt way, right? So there's 1,000 different ways that you could have gone after GM and other companies that are doing this. But why did you choose to just kill the renewable energy part and target their electric vehicles in specific? It seems like, no, that's the corruption part. The oil companies asked you to do that, and then you use the GM closing down their plants as an excuse to do the bidding of the people who gave you campaign donations.
Yeah.
So it's like a kernel of like, hey, if you're gonna be a tough guy, I'm actually gonna back you up on that. I know not a lot of other progressives believe in that kind of stuff, but I do. I'd push them around. That'll be fun. Can you imagine from a progressive perspective? That would be amazing, right? But at the end of the day, Donald Trump always comes to the same conclusion: incompetence and corruption.
Yeah.
And he did it again.
Yeah, and you also have to bear in mind that we might not have had some of this closing down of these plants if he hadn't put in the tariffs that have cost them something like $1 billion on steel and aluminum, and supported a tax bill that incentivized corporations sending jobs overseas. So if you're gonna do both of those things and then act shocked and chagrined when some of these plants close down, that's a little bit disingenuous.
Totally agreed. John Iadarola is correct. 2it.com/John. Oh, look at that.
Let's go to break fast.
A rare magnanimous act by me to join up. Okay. He might just catch me. Doubt it.
I doubt it too.
Okay. Anyway. All right, guys. Apparently we have to take a break. When we come back, Donald Trump makes up a whole nother thing. But this one, it has a really important twist because today the market crashed a little bit because of it. And I think the epiphany that the market had is really, really important. So let's talk about that when we come back. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, Become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Normally we go to members' comments first, but I'm going to go to Twitter first in this case. Eclectic Miscellanea says, kudos to Cenk on the correction about Pathos. Everyone gets something wrong sometimes, and it's great that you guys let off with it instead of burying it somewhere like they do in the newspaper and online articles. That's another reason I trust TYT. Thank you, brother. We appreciate it.
And importantly, I don't think that it would have necessarily changed much, if any, of your analysis.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to correct it.
Yes.
But it didn't change what you thought about the fundamental story.
Right, and that's why we're gonna keep that video up, and we're gonna put the correction in the description box. And guys, if you ever want to get more details, look at the description box. That's where a lot of the links are, okay? And Amaria writes in, if Cenk goes vegan, I'll up my subscription to an activist level, and I'll use his name on the campaign.
Yeah.
All right, and I hear you.
Really important to note, climate change, industrial agriculture.
Okay, in fact,
these are things that we have to start talking about.
In fact, we are going to talk about it on Rebel headquarters, and Mark Thompson is not part of the host thing. But you know who else? There is one other vegan in the staff that is actually part of the host competition for signing up more members.
Marijuana. You turned your back on that iguana, it'll take a bite out of you.
No, I believe it is actually vegan.
Oh, maybe.
So tyt.com/marijuana, good luck spelling it.
Yeah.
Okay, but a lot of you have, because he's like in 6th place or something.
That's amazing.
Okay, so Mermaidum writes in along the lines that you were talking about, John, and from the member section this time. So put pressure on them to stop subsidies to animal agriculture via the Farm Bill. Dairy and meat production are not profitable, and we bail them out every year. The whole industry is a huge contributor to climate change, and making people pay the real price would change habits and put a huge dent in our impact on climate change. Well, that's a terrific point.
It's a big portion.
So I am an omnivore, so I would wind up paying more. Well, that's called sad day for me. And if I don't like it, I could stop eating meat and drinking milk. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, interestingly, on this, to some extent, that sort of subsidy system is kind of already in there. Apparently, on average, vegetarians spend about $750 less on food each year, and long term, in terms of medical bills, they probably save quite a bit of money there as well.
The vegans are carrying us.
They're doing pretty well, yeah.
Yeah, the vegetarians are carrying the rest of us. Anyway, so, and by the way, the hilarious thing is I actually believe in the free market, but we don't have the free market. It's so corrupted by all the money in politics. And so I actually think that, hence, it's a long way of agreeing with the commenter that, yeah, of course we should pay the real price of milk and eggs and steak. It's preposterous to subsidize them. Why are you guys subsidizing my fat ass? That makes no sense at all, right? So those are the choices I'm making. Anyway.
Well, technically, chicken is a newer industry than oil, so we do have to keep subsidizing that.
I'm pretty sure the chicken industry is pretty ancient.
Yeah,
okay, anyway, I just need you guys to panic about one last thing, which is Shop TYT. This is the last day that you can guarantee delivery by December 25th. So go to shoptyt.com to get that delivery.
Nice.
And so go for it. Make sure that you get your shopping in now. Of course, membership you can get anytime. It'll be delivered within 1 second. But if you're buying an actual item, go to shoptyt.com. Great shirts and sweaters, including ones with my face on it. So enjoy that. All right, what's next, John?
Yes, and also it was launched while you were gone. If people participate in the Amplify program and give at least 3 memberships, $150 level, the T-shirt that they ended up choosing is an amazing design. It's
I don't
really
even
cool.
know which one they chose.
Oh, and it's just available if you do Amplify. How good is that?
Oh, I love that. That was my favorite. That's awesome. You guys are terrific.
And it looks good in black and white.
It does.
It's so good.
It does. I'm super looking forward to one of those. Okay.
Yeah. Well, then you're gonna have to do the Amplify program.
Isn't it? Okay. We'll have to see how that works out. Yeah. All right. Excellent. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for designing it too. And Jen, let's get the name of the person who designed that one. I want to give that person credit too. All right. What's next, Jen?
Trade time. Trump ended his time at the G20 summit by announcing what appeared to be an absolutely massive concession by China on their trade with the United States. He tweeted, "China has agreed to reduce and remove tariffs on cars coming into China from the US, Currently, the tariff is 40%. So they're gonna reduce and remove the tariffs. I would argue that those are mutually exclusive. Like you're either reducing them or you're removing them, and it seems pretty significant, which it is. But look, it's obviously one of those. I mean, he just met with the leadership of China. He must know what he's talking about. It started to seem a little bit dicey later on that same day. Yahoo reported, it's unclear whether China would reduce its car tariffs immediately or as a result of a broader deal. In a briefing in Beijing a few hours after the tweet, China's foreign ministry spokesman declined to comment on any car tariff changes. So they were being very close-lipped about it in comparison to Donald Trump, who instantly posted on Twitter and Snapchat and Insta about it. But he also gave more information since then about the future of trade between the US and China, saying, on seeing whether or not a real deal with China is actually possible, if it is, we will get it done. China is supposed to start buying agricultural product and more immediately. President Xi and I want this deal to happen, and it probably will. But if not, remember, I am a tariff man. When people or countries come in to raid the great wealth of our nation, I want them to pay for the privilege of doing so. It will always be the best way to max out our economic power. We are right now taking in billions in tariffs. Make America rich again. And he just didn't have enough room for the exclamation point. So yes, if they're gonna, he's a tariff man, capitalized, just like Scott Free was yesterday. This is an amazing guy. So look, big progress apparently with China.
Yeah.
We've been worried about that trade war. It's serious, hurting a number of our different industries. Partially might have hurt GM, caused some of those factory closures.
First of all, I do want to give him credit for citing the great song by Elton John, Tariff Man. Okay, so he loves nicknames. I thought you couldn't get any goofier than George W. Bush on nicknames. He'd name things, folks, such names as tall guy. I'm not kidding. Okay, budget man.
That sounds like a Bush one.
Okay, and no, yeah, Stretch was one of his favorites. If you weren't tall guy, you were Stretch.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more clever, I guess.
And of course, my favorite, he gave the nickname Pooty Poot to Vladimir Putin. It's unbelievable.
Cute, I guess. I don't know.
How do you give him a cutie name? Anyway, why don't you just call him Cutie Patootie?
Oh no.
Okay, even Trump didn't do that.
Yes.
But Trump has found a way to out-dumb George W. Bush. And he's like, okay, so he called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man. I get it. Calling yourself Tariff Man, like, that's worse than when Costanza tried to name himself T-Bone.
Oh, poor T-Bone. I think he ended on Coco, actually. Yeah, you can't do that. And there is a problem with Tariff Man, as someone pointed out on Twitter. The kryptonite to Tariff Man is market forces, which he doesn't seem to understand. And he also doesn't understand a fundamental thing that we have been talking about literally since the debates when he started talking about these tariffs. If he puts up tariffs against their goods, it's not China that pays us that money, we pay that money. We pay higher prices for those goods. Now, yes, long term, you could say it's trying to change the calculus and maybe that'll cause them to lower the tariffs on the other side, blah, blah, blah. But in the short term, Tariff Man is robbing you for all the steel and aluminum and all of that, the products that are made from these raw materials, the soybeans, everything.
Tariff Man also took a lot of your jobs away because since the companies are paying higher tariffs, they decided, I don't want to produce it here anymore. I'm going to go to other countries where I don't have to pay those tariffs. Yeah. So that's part of the reason GM left and the 15,000 jobs went along with it. So Tariff Man's a bit of an anti-hero. He's, I guess he's a villain, right? Because he takes away your jobs, charges you more, screws up the economy, which leads me to explaining what actually is going on. John's kidding around about how he solved it and stuff, right? So on Monday, he's basically puts out the congratulatory tweet. We're done with this, and I've got, and China is going to roll back the tariffs, and the market goes up. And it was like, yes, finally, oh, thank God, right? And because the companies are thinking, okay, then I don't have to pay as much of a tariff. I'm going to make more money, and I'm going to sell more products because they're not going to be as expensive. It's a double win, right? So for the companies, and so then today, they went and asked the Chinese, and the Chinese were like, not so much, right? And they're like, what? But he said it in a tweet. We're like, and then I could just see Like both the guys, the reporters and the guys in the market going, oh, what have we done? It was a Trump tweet. Why did we listen to it? And then CNBC calls JP Morgan, and JP Morgan's like, no, none of this is true, okay?
You want some of the JP Morgan quotes? So JP Morgan is telling investors that Trump's declaration this week that China will immediately drop all tariffs on American cars has no basis in reality.
Let's just pause there. No basis in reality. JP Morgan is not a bunch of good guys. They're a bunch of greedy bankers, right? And they were like looking forward to the tariffs being lifted and everything was gonna be great. And then they're like, no basis in reality.
Yeah, no, that needs to stick. It needs to be Trump 2020. No basis in reality.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what they told the investors. They sent a note saying that investors should have valid reason for caution when it comes to investing on the hopes that Trump is on the verge of a major breakthrough with China. They said it doesn't seem like anything was actually agreed to at the dinner, and the White House officials are contorting themselves into pretzels to reconcile Trump's tweets, which seem, if not completely fabricated, then grossly exaggerated with reality.
So CNBC broke this story. I'm not a huge fan of their anchors. They tend to be very right-wing. Yeah. But they give credit where credit is due. And so I went to CNBC this morning to check it out. And it felt like the whole website was like, it was before the markets opened. And it felt like a huge, whoa, okay, here comes the crash, ... And so we did have a crash today. It's not, I don't want to mislead you, it's not like a recession-style crash, it's not a 2008 crash, but all the gains from yesterday gone and then some. So we got hit pretty hard, over 500 points. So, but I think the most interesting part and relevant part here is not that Trump lied in a tweet, he does that almost on a daily basis, that he made up policy of both the United States and China, he does that on a daily basis. And it's not that the markets dipped, they've continued to dip for quite some time now, and Trump's getting frustrated by it. He can't figure out why. Note to Tariff Man, look in the mirror, okay, that's why. Anyway, but the most relevant part of this entire story is the markets are no joke. They got to get it right. There's lots of money on the line. And today was basically the markets realizing in mass, oh no, this guy doesn't tell the truth. What were we thinking? Like, and they did. They largely had not realized what a gigantic liar Donald Trump is. So for the markets, again, in mass to really go, oh, right? Why did we ever believe him? And so I'm not saying that the crash was like a macro look at Donald Trump, and now that we realize he's been lying all along, we're gonna downgrade everything. No, but it was in specific to this. Yeah. And of course, there's other market forces as well, but it seemed pretty clear that it went up yesterday because of the tariff comments and went down even more so today because they realized that none of it was true. But I think that it could have, going forward, long-term consequences as the markets finally wake up to who Donald Trump is. That's a deeply unstable, unreliable leader, which is not good for the markets.
Agreed. Do you want to take the second break, or do you want to move on to the next story?
You know what? Let's take a quick break. The Epstein story is gigantic.
It is.
And you know, JR, at least in my experience, I'm sure he's not the first one to recognize it ever in history. But about a decade ago, pointed out in the middle of a story, hey, Cenk, did you realize that all that the Republicans do is projection? That whatever they accuse liberals of, they themselves do, right? And my God, that has been the best observation in TYT history. And so the Epstein case is a story of essentially Pizzagate, child pedophilia involving the elite, except it's real. It's not out of a pizza parlor, it's out of a mansion and a yacht and a jet, literally. And it involves people like Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz. Now, whether they all did it is a different question, okay? But it's a real question. And we're going to tell you what happened today, but there's a doozy of a twist in the original non-prosecution agreement. I mean, it's potentially world-changing. When I saw it in the Miami Herald, I was like, what? Why in the world did they put that in? Man, that's the thing that could unravel everything. So, how's that for a tease? But we will deliver on all of it when we return.